Welcome to Life, Law, and Lattes, the podcast where real-life conversations meet legal insight on marriage, divorce, custody, and caregiving. Your host, attorney Nadia Gilkes, is here to help you understand the law and how it connects to everyday life. You'll hear legal tips and stories, but every situation is unique, so please speak with a local attorney for advice on your specific legal matter. Now, let's get into today's conversation.
Hello and welcome back to Life, Law, and Lattes. I'm your host, Nadia Gilkes, and today's episode is a little different. It's not completely about family law. It's not part of our Before Forever series. But today's episode, we are diving back into true crime and talking about a documentary that I just watched that's trending on Netflix that so many of you are talking about. And when I saw it, I spent most of it scratching my head and yelling at the TV and saying, they got me again. Facebook got me again. They drew me into this web of crazy, and now my head is spinning. Not because I didn't understand what was happening, because sometimes that is the case, but this documentary just left me like, there were so many opportunities to prevent this crime. How did it get this far? That didn't make sense to me. So the documentary that I watched is Maternal Instinct. And again, it's been trending for at least a week on Netflix. You've probably heard about it. The case of Taylor Parker and the murder of Reagan Hancock. So before I get into this, I guess I should do a spoiler alert because you'll know the outcome and a trigger warning because it is a very grim and graphic situation. I'm not going through the ins and outs of the crime itself, but this is about violence against a pregnant woman, and spoiler alert, her child also does not make it. I guess I should say the murder of a pregnant woman and also her unborn child. But it wasn't just the crime itself. It was everything leading up to the crime and how this wasn't stopped. Like, people heard inconsistencies. They knew things weren't adding up. Some people knew the truth. There were red flags all over the place. But I don't think anyone thought that she would go to the extreme that she did. They knew that something would happen, but nobody knew that she would take it this far. So it just kind of left me, in relation to a couple people in particular, when does minding your own business become dangerous? When do we get to violate HIPAA to protect the public at large? How do you lead a horse to water and make them drink? Like, all of it just literally had me screaming at the TV. Like, I couldn't believe it. So if you haven't seen it, I'll try to do a brief little recap, but it's a very layered story. So there was this very young woman named Taylor, and she just kind of plopped into this old country town way up in the corner of Texas, pretty much at the Texas-Oklahoma border, or maybe a couple hours from Oklahoma. Small town, everybody knows everybody, everybody's on Facebook, they chit-chat, whatever. Everybody's in your business, just a small town. So she meets this guy named Wade, and she wants nothing more than, I think, well, I should say a whole bunch of allegedlys, but watch the documentary yourself, read the trial transcript, it's out there. But she meets this guy named Wade. She gets it in her mind, he's the one. I'm going to have him by any means necessary. And she just digs her claws into him and starts building this web of lies and getting his family and his friends to just adore her. And she did everything. She was like, "Oh, I'm inheriting millions from my grandma." She's, buying people cars. She's talking to him like, "Oh, what kind of farm do you want? How much land do you want?" She's looking at, $20 million properties, all this kind of stuff. And to keep up to keep her hooks into him, of course, at some point, she's got to be pregnant, right? So she ends up coming up with this "I'm pregnant" story, because that's how almost all these things go. So during her time in this, I think it was New Boston, Texas. I hadn't heard of that city until the documentary, but small town Texas. So somewhere along the way in her little odd jobs, farming and all this stuff, she becomes a photographer and she meets this woman named Reagan, and she is the photographer at Reagan's wedding. And during the wedding, she just becomes one of the girlfriends. She's hanging out basically like one of the bridesmaids. Everybody's just like, "Oh, she's here by herself. She doesn't know many people in town. She's our new friend." So she takes the wedding pictures. She's friendly with Reagan's friends. She's kind of got a inroad there. Reagan will come back to the story later. So turns out Taylor and Reagan become pregnant at the same time, or at least Taylor convinces people that she's pregnant. So she's doing all the things because she's got to keep Wade. So she's, you know, buying things for the baby. She's setting up, baby clothes, cribs, all those things. She's posting on social media. They had a gender reveal with they tied a pink ribbon around a baby goat and had him come from around the barn. I'm sorry. I'm just, oh. She did all the things. She just We'll just leave it there. She did all the things. So she's building up anticipation. Everybody's like, "Oh, you guys, things are going great. Gonna have a baby. You have a family. She's gonna buy you a farm. She's, getting all these millions, blah, 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 blah." But then some of her old friends who knew her from her former life are seeing the post too. And they're just like, something's not adding up. And then her new friends in this new town, even they're starting to be like, something's not adding up. Look at these pictures on Facebook. Sometimes she's real big, sometimes she's kind of small. Look at these pictures taken days apart. Her belly size keeps changing. Like all these things there starts to be cracks in the storyline. So then they start comparing notes amongst each other. Because again, it's a small town, everybody knows everybody. So Wade's best friend, his wife, was like lead investigator. She takes on the charge and she's rallying the troops. And she's like, "This isn't sounding right. Something's not right. Something is not adding up." Wade's mom starts saying something is not adding up, and everybody starts comparing notes. Well, when the new friends get in touch with the old friends, they realize that Taylor had a hysterectomy. She can't have kids. So she can't possibly be pregnant. So now there's a set of people who know she's lying. And to give them credit, because I probably would kind of do the same, they're like, "Okay, as with everything in life," this is what I say all the time, "as with everything in life, time will tell." So they're just kind of like, "Well, if she can't have a baby, then I guess at the end of this, she's just going to say she lost a child and that's just going to be that." So they start trying to convince Wade, like, "Hey, she can't have kids. She's had a hysterectomy." She had sunk her teeth into him so deep that he did not believe anything anyone said. Even his best friend was trying to come to him like, "Hey, my wife looked up all this stuff and you sure everything's all right? You sure this is legit?" I don't know. He's not listening to anyone. So there's red flags all over the place. And I guess when it comes to a master manipulator, all you got to do is get one. If you can get that one and brainwash him enough, it doesn't matter what anybody else says. That's kind of what I got from this. So Wade's not listening to anyone. So we get to like the 8-9 month mark, and it's like, okay, time should be telling pretty soon. Something's got to happen. And everybody's kind of waiting in anticipation for how is this going to play out. So at this moment, I'll pause that story to kind of go back to her past. So in her past life with her old friends, there was a girl that she befriended, kind of like the way she befriended Reagan. And to be clear, I am not victim blaming. I just want to kind of put a PSA out there. So she befriended this other girl at some point in time, and I can't remember the girl's name. It's not really that crucial. But she became super, super close to her and very involved in the pregnancy, to the point where Taylor was like, hey, give me the password to your baby app so I can track the progress of your baby and see all your pregnancy notes. And it got so creepy that the girl was like, you gotta go, and completely cut her off. I wish Reagan had done that, because the other girl clearly, and maybe that's where the title comes from, Maternal Instinct, I don't know. But the other girl clearly was like, something is not right here. You're getting way too close. You're wanting too much information. It was beyond, let me bring you some onesies and you know, baby bottles. It was like, I want to know every single detail that's going on with your pregnancy. Da, da, da. I'm so excited for you. Like, you were too excited. So the girl cut her off. The girl probably saved her own life in doing that. I don't know what all she was doing with Reagan, but following Reagan on social media, seeing how far along she was, she comes back into the picture. She's friendly with the family, friendly with the friends, in and out of Reagan's home. And when the time came and went that Taylor should have had her own child, she's like, I need a baby now. And unfortunately, Reagan was killed, and she, I guess, expected to take her child out of her stomach and pass that baby off as her own. Unfortunately, the baby didn't make it either, but that's what happened. Horrific. Horrific. My heart went out to the mother. The mother found her, and that 911 call, it was very jarring. But I just kept thinking, pregnant women have to be so careful. Like, most of the time a pregnant woman is attacked, it normally is a crime of passion, in an intimate encounter, or someone that they know. And I just feel like, especially when you're really showing and you're getting towards that last trimester and weeks to days before you deliver, pregnant women just have to be so careful. Anybody new coming into your life during your pregnancy, please just scrutinize them and make no apologies about it. You just have to be careful. Pregnant women are more vulnerable. There's a lot of crazy out there. You just never know. This situation is so uncommon, right? Like, we don't hear about this all the time, but when we do hear about it, it's really horrific. So just be careful. And if you start getting those hairs standing up at the back of your neck, you're getting something that's like, I don't really know, run with that. Literally, don't take anything for granted. Go with your instinct, cut people off, make sure other people are around you that you do trust. Don't take anything for granted. There's a lot of crazy out there. So we have Reagan getting harmed. But before we get there, all of these red flags, all of these people talking. Now, the person that I feel, it's kind of twofold. This really has me in my emotions. Like, Wade. There's a little piece of me that feels bad for him because, oh, poor, not so smart Wade. Oh, poor Wade, right? Like, there's one part that feels kind of whatever, but then there's another part like, How did you, of all people, allow this to slip by you? She would never let him come to a doctor's appointment. This woman is having your first child. He's not hearing the heartbeat. He's not seeing the ultrasound for himself. If he did take her to the doctor, she made him wait outside in the car. Never once went to a doctor's appointment with her. Never saw her naked the whole pregnancy. Never had sex with her. I guess, well, certainly for 5 or 6 months stretch of time, but possibly the whole pregnancy, because she felt uncomfortable about her body. This woman is having your child. At some point, you put your foot down and say, I am coming to the doctor. I need to see something for myself, or you got to go, or, rip her clothes. I'm not suggesting violence, but I think at some point I would have been like, get undressed right now. Too many people are talking. I need to see, you're the one person that could be like, no, I need answers. I deserve answers. Take your clothes off right now. And if you don't do it, I'll put you up in a hotel or whatever, but you got to go. Like something. Do something. He was just like, okay. And his mom was like, do you love her? Is that it? Do you love her? He's like, no, but she's having my kid. Okay, but you don't even have proof that she's having your kid. It was just too, even the best friend was like, what? You ain't had sex in 5 months. It was just like, that alone was just like, dude, you can't be that. It was a lot. So that kind of sent me way over the edge. But what also kind of sent me over the edge was the doctor that performed the hysterectomy. Now, again, she's a small town girl. I don't know where she was originally from, but even the doctor had gotten wind that she was going around saying she's pregnant. So now obviously the doctor knows that's not possible. He performed the hysterectomy. He stands by his work. You don't normally have a baby after you've had a hysterectomy. So he knows that something is up. Now, I understand HIPAA, but this doctor was so afraid that she was going to try something that around the time she said she was due, he put his maternity ward on lockdown. So it's like, if you are, let's just say suspicious. If you're suspicious to that extent that you are actually putting the word out to security and putting your own maternity ward on lockdown, you have a sinking suspicion she's going to hurt someone, or she's going to commit a crime. And I feel like at that point in time, you should be able to come out and say something to somebody. Maybe not go on Facebook and say, hey, this post can't possibly be true because she can't get pregnant, but say something. Call somebody something, because you felt it in your bones. You did what you had to do to protect your people in your hospital. But in the end, poor Reagan ends up killed because of your silence. And I know the law's tough. Nobody wants to get sued. We're in a very litigious society here. But I was just like, you knew. I think that doctor even testified at the trial because he was the local expert. Like, he's the bigwig doctor in town. He's the expert that gets called to these kinds of things. So I think he was the same one that actually testified. And I was just like, again, shutting your mouth and minding your own business sometimes can be dangerous. So those were the two in my book that's like, don't know if you're completely innocent. Don't know if I could sit there and be like, I can't pour way too much because you over anybody could have figured out the truth a lot faster. You could have listened to your mom. You could have listened to your best friend's wife. He just didn't want to hear any of it. His best friend was trying to tell him, and he cut off the best friend. He literally was like, I'm all in on Taylor. Bet on the wrong chips. And then the friends that kind of knew, they they said, "Hey, she's as far as I know, she had a hysterectomy. Do with that what you will." Now her mom, that's another one who probably kind of could have done a little bit more, but her mom was like, "I'm raising my granddaughter, and I don't want her to come and take the grandbaby. If I say something, she's gonna take this kid and I'll never see my grandbaby again." And at this point, the grandchild is like 6 years old. But also you're in a relationship, Wade, with someone who doesn't have their own kids and they're about to have a kid for you. You don't question where the other kids are. Like, it was just too much. Like, part of me was like, this can't be real. But this is these are the twists and turns of the story. And there was a few more things in there, but this is the big glaring red flags of the story. And it just left me like, I mean, we all know that there's like cults out there and there's brainwashing, and you could be abused so much that your viewpoint is skewed, or you can be manipulated, traumatized, whatever. But the things that she was saying, it was so easy to verify that it wasn't true. So I'm just like, can we even call this brainwashing? I don't know how that works. Like, I don't know how deep manipulation runs, because I don't really trust too many people. And this is kind of why. But it just left me scratching my head. Like, I think a lot of us have been in situations where we see a friend heading down a path like, "Hey, that's not the guy for you. Hey, you probably should be careful of that friend. I don't know, something about her." Or, you say something and it's like there's nothing you can do to get through the brick wall. And then at some point they crash and burn because your instincts were right. But I don't know. Do you feel guilty, or do you say, "Well, I did my part. I did what I could. Not my fault she didn't listen." Like, there's just a lot going on. There's just a lot going on. I would definitely say it's worth the watch if you wanna watch it for yourself. I don't have any I don't have any, like, grand, amazing legal advice for this situation other than the jury got it right, life in prison. I'm sorry, not life in prison, death row. I don't believe in death row. I'm a life in prison type of person, but she is the youngest person on death row in Texas, and, she's going through the appeals. At least that's what they said at the end, and I found that odd because normally when you're on death row in Texas, like, it's a fast track through the appeal through the appellate system, and it normally doesn't take more than, like, 12, 13 years. So this murder happened in 2020. I think the trial was in 2022. So I don't expect her appeal process to be that long. 12 years might sound like a long time, but other states have people that have been on death row for much longer. Texas really does have a fast track to whatever their method is now. I don't know if it's the needle or probably still the electric chair. I have no idea. But yeah, it's it just left me doing that, sighing deeply, shaking my head, and saying, "What in the world? How?" It almost makes me wanna read the HIPAA law and see, like, are there any loopholes for doctors? Like, if you get an inkling that someone is might kill me or might hurt somebody else, is there ever a time that you can speak up and say, "Hey, don't wanna put anybody's business out there, but you could be in danger because this can't be true." This was extreme. These situations don't happen every day, but when they happen, I feel like HIPAA should be able to be overcome with, "I'm trying to save someone's life. Something clearly is not right here." And it when that type of scenario happens, it's usually this, like someone who can't possibly have a child and they're desperate to have a child goes out and by any means necessary tries to take someone else's child. At that point, there should be no HIPAA. Just like if you go to therapy, there's the privacy statements and the confidentiality agreements. However, if I get the idea that you're going to hurt yourself or someone else, I got to say something. I feel like doctors should kind of have that loophole in super extreme cases. And this was a super extreme case. But if the right people had gotten through or the right people had spoken up, Reagan would still be here. Her child would likely have been born perfectly healthy. And we wouldn't have lost 2 lives, and I think that's worth overcoming a medical policy, a privacy statement. So, Netflix has done it again. I honestly wasn't even gonna watch it because I wasn't sure what I was gonna see. Thankfully, they do skip over the gore of the day. You don't see crime scene photos or anything like that. But, I had talked about it even though I hadn't watched it, and then my brother watched it and was like, "What the heck?" And since I have, like, talked somebody into watching it, I'm like, "Okay, well, now I feel obligated to watch it too." And then I was like, "What the heck? This chick was super crazy." Be careful. Be careful of the people around you. Learn to listen to your instincts, and if you get any kind of inkling that something doesn't feel right, run with that. Err on the side of caution. You might be wrong about them, but I'd rather you be wrong and alive than ignore the red flags and have a tragic end that could have been prevented. I don't know what Reagan felt. I'm not trying to say that Reagan felt something and should have done something different. I have no idea. I know the other girl did. The other girl was like, you're too involved in my pregnancy. Bye. Very strong young lady. And I hope she's not carrying a whole lot of guilt because, she did the right thing for herself. But in these times when everything seems off kilter, you just have to protect yourself. And if you get any kind of red flag or uneasy feeling, you don't have to stay around someone who makes you feel uneasy. Cut them off and move on. Protect yourself and keep yourself safe. So that's what I have for this episode of Life, Law, and Lattes. If you want something a little more upbeat, you can tune into my Before Forever series where we're talking about essential conversations that couples should have before they make a long-term commitment. So that's a little more upbeat, but I do enjoy the true crime element of life as well. But anyway, until next time, I thank you so much for tuning in. I always appreciate your support, your listens. Please like, share, and subscribe wherever you're listening to this and invite somebody else into the conversation. Please share this with your network so that we can continue to grow and thrive. Take care of yourself and your loved ones.
Thanks for spending part of your day with us here on Life, Law, and Lattes. If you found something helpful or inspiring, please like, share, and subscribe on your favorite streaming service. This helps more people find the show. Until next time, take care and keep filling your cup with knowledge.